Miami Dolphins 36, Los Angeles Chargers 34. If you like offense, this was a good one. It was the game of the day as far as the back and forth goes, and of course when there's a lot of scoring, people love it. But this was exciting. This was really incredible. Tua finishes with 466 yards. That's over 300 more yards than he had last time against the Chargers. 145 yards last time. The Chargers did such a good job on the Dolphins last December, but not in this one. The Dolphins, it was like, man, they just said, forget this. We're faster than you. We're better than you. And we're going to also scheme up some incredible plays for guys like Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. Tyreek Hill finishes with 11 catches for 215. Chargers on the other side ran the ball like crazy. 5.8 per carry, 234 yards on the ground. Obviously scored a lot of points, but fourth quarter comeback opportunity for Justin Herbert falls flat. Ends with a lot of pressure from the Dolphins.
One of the few games where 466 yards doesn't even get you close to the single game record for that team.
What's that?
Dan Marino.
What's Dan got?
Dan's got 521. Dan also has 473 and 470. In fact, this is not even the single game record for Tua.
Oh, he had the Ravens game last year. Yeah.
So 466 yards, managed to land him fifth in the all-time single game charts for the Miami Dolphins.
I'm unable to keep track of every last bit of news from training camp, but the game starts with the Dolphins just boom right off the bat, chunk plays, and then Tua drops the snap. And they were saying in camp that had been an issue, the center QB exchange, which is like the basics of football. It happened 3 times. I think one was a shotgun snap, but Tua dropped 3 snaps in this game. I'm not saying it was all his fault or whatever. If that didn't happen, the Dolphins might have 100 points. The Chargers had no answers for Miami. I think with Tua, though, I was most impressed. Third down, fourth quarter comeback opportunity. He steps up in the pocket, and look, Tyreek Hill's incredible. Hits Tyreek Hill in stride, though, with that might be the best throw I've ever seen from Tua. Looked awesome. And then, did you see the route that Renner is going viral with?
No.
Showing what Tyreek Hill did. They line him up at tight end, motion him out, same side to the outside receiver, giving him the running start, and then he runs like a little double move thing, and Renner well captioned to go viral. He's like, there's not a cornerback in NFL history that could cover this. And I think he's kind of right. But that type of motion, like when you have Mike McDaniel scheming up plays with Tyreek Hill, and I know he had Andy Reid, but Mike McDaniel's doing some really nice stuff with Tyreek Hill getting him in space.
So I know that's the play that stood out the most in this game. This was one of the more last year. The Dolphins Chargers game was a game where schematically this Mike McDaniel offense was given the most problems, right? And it was like McDaniel spent the entire offseason working to make sure that didn't happen again, to the point where he went and hired Vic Fangio. Like, they hired the coach that was the godfather of that defensive scheme. And these people are crazy enough that you can argue just for that. Just to make sure that game doesn't happen again, they went and hired Vic Fangio for their own defense. And that play was one of the sort of changes that they made on, if you remember last year, the Dolphins were doing a ton of motion where Tyreek Hill was coming from one side of the formation, like flying across the line, and then they would snap the ball and he would immediately turn upfield with a running start, like already at full speed.
Like it's the CFL.
Yeah, but the distance that he had to travel, like going from one side of the formation to the other, would allow the defense to adjust and call something, move, rotate safeties, like change how they were matching up during the time he's running across from one side of the line to the other. What they did in this game a lot was plays like this, where he's lining up on one side of the formation and staying on that side of the formation, but still going in motion. So they would just let him start sprinting 5 yards laterally and then turning upfield with a full head of steam already. So it did look a little bit like the CFL where they have that running start, but it was much quicker. So the Chargers couldn't change anything while it was happening because it was just already the play was about to start. And all this did was put a DB on an island against a Tyreek Hill who's already at a full head of steam, at which point, as Renner says, not a chance. You're dead in the water. No shot. It didn't help that the DB in question half the time was J.C. Jackson, who's coming off a torn knee. And you're like, what? Dude, you're isolating J.C. Jackson coming off his knee injury with Tyreek Hill with a full head of steam. how do you imagine that's going to go?
Yeah, I mean, J.C. Jackson had that one interception, which was probably of all, the entire game, Tua's most questionable decision. He throws a jump ball to J.C. Jackson in the third quarter. It wasn't to J.C. Jackson, it was to Braxton Berrios. J.C. Jackson towers over Braxton Berrios and picks it off. But other than that, Chargers did not have much success covering. They got to figure it out defensively, man.
But
Chargers, because they've got so much talent. I mean, impressed by the Dolphins. That was outstanding.
Yeah.
But the Chargers, this is supposed to be their thing.
But Miami came into this game and it was like they had learned all the lessons from what went wrong the last time. The Chargers came into this game and it was like they had learned no lessons. They had no lessons to teach either. They just had nothing. They had no answers at all on defense. And it's another, black mark against a coach who was hired for his defensive prowess. That's like if your defense is getting, you got out-coached in this game. This was one of those games where one side of the ball got out-coached. And then what do you bring into the table? Because the overall team hasn't necessarily progressed the way you would want it. Now, the one thing you would say in Brandon Staley's favor, I guess, is that the Kellen Moore thing worked week one. Kellen Moore coming in, Justin Herbert was a little bit more aggressive. The offense generally had some success. So you're like, all right, if that was your decision, that move has worked, fair play. But the thing that you're supposed to be bringing to the table here, defensive knowledge, and the defense that is causing this type of offense the biggest problems, just got eviscerated.
Yeah, I want to apologize to backup left tackle, Miami Dolphins, Kendall Lamb.
Okay.
Because I tweeted out his worst play.
You did.
So, it might tell the wrong story. Miami held up really well against this Chargers pass rush. And I think part of my Chargers optimism was that Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack, all right, we got a full season of those guys now. Neither guy hit Tua, knocked him down. There was one time Tua got hit in this game with Kendall Lamb in there for Teron Armstead. Isaiah Wynn steps in and plays. Miami's offensive line, which we've questioned a lot over the last 3 or 4 years, was really, really good in this game from a pass pro standpoint. So I want to give credit there properly. The Kellen Moore thing that you're saying, it was interesting because this looks like what Brandon Staley wanted this offseason. We're going to run the ball a little bit more. And they ran the ball a ton. There was a point in the game where they had 30 plus carries and Herbert only had 20-something attempts. Whereas last year, there was a lot of games where Herbert's up at 45, 50 attempts and they've run the ball 7 times, right? So they did have this quote-unquote balance. Austin Eckler had a nice 55-yard run, and they were creating some chunk plays in the pass game. Keenan Allen, Austin Eckler, and the whole thing. But it was just lacking at the end, right? And the Dolphins got them with multiple blitzes down the stretch, and that's always my question with a new offense. How does the new offense handle the blitz early in the season? Communication, making sure you know where your hots are, making sure you know who's getting picked up. And the Chargers didn't have answers for Vic Fangio's blitz at the end of the game, which I thought, it ended up being the key, right? I mean, Herbert's got the ball. Miami misses the extra point, right, to give the Chargers life. Only up 2. And the Chargers have plenty of time to lead a fourth quarter comeback, and the Dolphins cracked down at the end there. So I think overall, Kellen Moore experience was fine. But they didn't have answers for the blitz at the end of the game.
No, they didn't have answers to that. Their defense couldn't stop them at all. They also, remember, so it was tied at the half, right? Or it was about to be tied at the half. And then the Chargers, just a ridiculous, how many seconds were left before the half when Miami got the ball back? They give up a really easy, pretty decent completion to get that drive moving. And then the next play, an absolutely absurd defensive pass interference penalty. Absurd in terms of what the hell were you doing? That was dumb.
Yeah.
That gave Miami a field goal, which they converted, and that ended up being the difference in the game. It was quite an impressive. That was some pretty hard charging by the Chargers. That was pretty dumb. Can't do that.
Quentin Johnston, the rookie first rounder for the Chargers, had 3 targets. At first, I was nervous because they were using him on jet sweeps, and they used him on the shovel pass that fell incomplete. So I was thinking they were using him as a satellite space player. They had him on a couple vertical routes, but Herbert did overthrow him before the half. But they didn't use Quentin Johnston a whole lot But again, I thought the Chargers offense wasn't the problem. Their inability to rush the passer, huge question mark.
That's one of the worst games Joey Bosa has played in the NFL.
He had that one incredible rush on Kendall Lamb, and then he grabbed the face mask.
He was pretty anonymous in that game for a guy that's usually a difference maker.